very good morning to everybody, and a big thank you to Panchsheel Ladies Welfare Organization for having me here yet again. I was here thanks to Amita ji about maybe more than 8 years ago, and this was very special because my office was next door and we had 4 lovely years in this colony till COVID happened, and then we shut this office and never went back and started work from home. So it's lovely to be back and to be addressing women's audiences is always extra special, because I think this is what we call a window of opportunity where change can actually be facilitated. It's the women in the house who take the decisions for food, and it is really the most important, I would say, part of our well-being, what we eat, what we buy, what we feed to the family, which impacts not only women's health, but the entire family's health and the nation's health. So women are truly special, and I was just thinking that, how I'm going to be spending the next 20 minutes talking to you all who are such aware, educated and informed audience. I hope none of you are thinking, oh my God, another health talk, another diet. We've had enough. Honestly, any hands up who thought or who think that yet another session on food, don't we know enough? Honestly? No? Not at all.
Always welcome.
Yeah, that's
Looking forward. Those who thought that aren't here.
yes, possibly.
Looking forward.
Thank you. I'm so glad. But there is such a contradiction here in my mind, and I exactly know where it's all coming from. But a society which has such rich heritage and beliefs and traditional practices which are so sound, which are part of our religious texts, are part of our ancient books. 5,000 years ago, India has produced the wealth of how to live, how to eat. And we have such good food. Nowhere, I think, in the other parts of the world that we have the kind of grains that we have, the kinds of dals that we have, the vegetables, the variety, it's so up there, and we knew it all. And yet we are having to sit down here today and seek more information. We are still hungry for more information, and the why is simply that we went wrong. Not we individually, but collectively, as food became more and more industrialized, food and agricultural practices changed, and the environment changed. Of course, other aspects of our lifestyle also changed. But the biggest impact that has impacted us and our health and well-being is the nature of our food. And with so much, I call it an infodemic, with so much information out there, the health crisis is far from being resolved. We are facing epidemic of diseases, epidemic of diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome, hypertension, cancer, mental health problems like never before. Don't you agree? And everyone's struggling. Everyone's trying to get that one magic, one miracle food, superfood, or do something new, follow some diet to get that belly off, to get a flat belly, to reduce weight, to manage diabetes. We're all looking for that magic bullet because things are not working. And if I really explain to you why things haven't worked, you will at least feel you are not responsible. We almost live guiltily every day. मीठा खा लिया, oh I have a sweet tooth, रात को रोका नहीं जाता, I can't eat light at night. Isn't it? I hear all these things. And I'm very happy with intermittent fasting, but I can't do keto and I can't, I have to socialize, I have to travel, there's a wedding, there's this, that, so many challenges, and we keep blaming ourselves. And lastly, we don't exercise enough. We keep thinking, don't feel like getting out of the bed, don't feel like going for a walk, don't feel like doing this, I'm not that active. कल मैं कहीं पे खड़ी थी, I was in Kolkata. So this very famous singer, she was there, this was a musical cruise. And she said, मेरे से तो हिला ही नहीं जाता, बस वो सुबह उठती हूँ, पर्दा खोलती हूँ, पत्ते हिलते हैं, तो मैं भी सोचती हूँ बस हो गया मेरा, देख लिया मैंने पत्ते हिल रहे. So we are living with a guilt, you know. So I think once you understand the depth of what has caused all this problem, you will stop feeling so guilty. It's not been our fault. It has been the change in our ecosystem around us, which is responsible for our state of ill health. And the good news is that it's very simple to correct things. And that is the simplicity of this message for the next 10 minutes I'm going to be talking about. And it's absolutely unprecedented for a prime minister in any part of the world in political history to come out with such a strong mandate and directive to push millets into our lives. No prime minister has ever talked about what to eat. And here it's going so strong, and whether it's the agricultural sector, whether it's the food industry, whether it's the manufacturing, the snack food industry, or individual levels, schools, colleges, sports, he's pushing it everywhere. Why? The reason is because he understands the importance of the choice of grain. Millets were native to India, but thanks to the Green Revolution in the 1960s, it got literally overshadowed by modern wheat. There were manipulations in the seed itself. Manipulations can be called various technical names, short of being genetically modified, not strictly speaking genetically modified, but almost there. So a tall grass, wheat was a tall grass, became a dwarf with multiple seeds. So multiple seeds, short grass was the outer look of the grain. It's called the phenotype. The genetic changes happened too to make it high yielding, pesticide resistant, pest resistant, etc. So these traits were incorporated to feed the world, and that was called the Green Revolution, and it did do that. But somehow the changes that were made in this wheat, particularly, lots of changes have been made in many crops, be it vegetables, fruits, rice, etc. Many changes have been made. But this particular one proved to be far more seriously affecting our gut, our health adversely. Nobody knew, nobody did safety studies. Because why? Why did this particular crop have an adverse effect on our immune system? That's the question which everybody asks. What's wrong? We've eaten this grain for years. 5,000 years ago, it was there in our books. Its evidence is there all over the world. People had bread, people had chapatis. Nothing happened to them. But Wheat particularly is a known allergen. We have 8 known allergens, which include egg, soy, wheat, and shellfish, nuts, tree nuts, etc., etc. So wheat is one of the known allergens, which means it has a component which can provoke the immune system to cause problems in some people who are sensitive to it. It has a potential to induce a damage to the gut in people who have celiac disease. It's a very specific nature of damage where the intestines get so badly damaged that they are unable to absorb the food, the nutrition, and these people then suffer several adverse health effects, symptoms and diseases, autoimmunity and cancers if it goes untreated. So that is the potential in wheat. So probably the scientists who did it never realized that this change, when we were making this high yielding variety, was going to do something bigger and more serious, and it had a far more profound immunogenic potential. And bit by bit, if you see, after the 1960s, the epidemic of heart disease started 20 years later. The epidemic of diabetes, obesity, and it has just climbed. So if we are able to make these connections, you will literally join the dots and understand that where can we intervene to change our health. So I say the grain changer is a game changer. And I think Mr. Modi has stamped it like never before. So that is the importance of having alternate grains. And we just heard ma'am who introduced us to millets saying they're high on nutrition, there's a low glycemic index, etc., etc. But let me tell you, wheat is not low in nutrition. Wheat is very high in iron. Wheat is very high in magnesium and the B vitamins. Wheat is very high in fiber. It's not that. And millets individually are different. This is a collective group. There are multiple grains in millets. You know, there is bajra, there's jowar. So each millet, ragi has its own USP. Bajra has its own USP. It's high in iron. Foxtail millet is high on protein. And proso millet is also high on protein. Foxtail millet has a low glycemic index. Sorghum, jowar and bajra are high glycemic, comparable to wheat. So not all millets have low glycemic index. Not all millets have the same nutrition value. But what they don't have is the inflammatory protein which is found in wheat, called gluten. And that explains why when people shift to millet-based diets, their blood sugars drop, their weight will drop, their bone health improves, anemia can be corrected, nutritional status improves, digestive problems improve. Oversimplification of science is also a problem. So making the next point here is that, am I saying wheat is bad for everybody? No, I'm not saying that. But if you have a genetic potential for developing diseases in the family, if there's autoimmunity or you yourself are suffering, then it may be a good idea to replace your grain, partially or wholly, depends on individuals. So one size does not fit all. Who is to do what is very customized. So oversimplification is not a good idea. And to say that if I start eating millets, everything will change, no. Because food is just, and food and nutrition are very, very complex. But if you do it right, and everything counts. So when I say that, literally, what you eat matters, what you choose, what grains you choose matter, how much you eat of that. If I overdo millets, surely not going to get my results. Millets also have almost the same amount of carbohydrate as wheat and rice. So millets, आप लोग इसको, let me ask you, do you consider millets as grains, as anaj, or not a non-anaj? See, there is confusion here. ये अनाज है या अनाज नहीं है? हाँ, अनाज है. कुछ मिलेट्स ऐसे हैं जिनको हम बोलते हैं सूडो सीरियल्स, बट न्यूट्रिशनल प्रोफाइल जो है वो अनाज ही है. कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स हैं उसमें, उतना ही सब कुछ है. सो इफ वी ओवरडू इट, वी आर गोइंग टू हैव प्रॉब्लम्स, राइट? सो अच्छा, इससे पेशेंट्स बोलेंगे इससे भी होता है क्या, रागी से भी ब्लड शुगर बढ़ जाएगी? हाँ, अगर आप ज़्यादा खाओगे तो बढ़ेगी, राइट? सो व्हाट यू ईट, how much you eat, how you eat it, whether you chew it well, whether you eat it in combinations, at what time you have it. So when you eat it is also important. What you digest is also important. And what you don't eat is also important. So oversimplification, to just doing one thing. मैंने कीटो डाइट करी, उसमें सारा ग्रेन्स बंद हो गए, कार्बोहाइड्रेट बंद हो गए, तो क्या वो अपने आप में एक अप्रोच है टू सॉल्व योर प्रॉब्लम्स? नो. मैंने फास्टिंग करी, इंटरमिटेंट फास्टिंग करना बहुत अच्छा है. क्लियरली इट्स अ वंडरफुल टूल and a health practice which our ancestors knew, and they gave it, it was so good that they gave it a religious twist to it. हाँ, कभी कोई मंडे कर रहा है, कोई ट्यूसडे कर रहा है, कोई थर्सडे कर रहा है, कोई फ्राइडे कर रहा है, कोई नवरात्रि कर रहा है. All over the world there are fast. Traditional societies will have fasting as a part of their culture. So it's a wonderful practice. But if I feast during my fast, I have a problem, right? And what I choose to eat in that fast also is important. So everything it is going to count. What intermittent fasting is all about? Eating within an 8-hour window. So if you put that window at night, so you start eating at say 3 o'clock and start eating into the night for those 8 hours, it's not a good idea, right? So when you eat, how you eat, and what you digest. So what you digest is your own microbiome, your own signature. The microbiome is your signature, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes explaining to you very briefly about the science of the microbiome and the gut and its relevance to millets, and then we'll open to questions. So how many of you by now, I'm sure everyone knows about the importance or the word microbiome? Yes? Okay, I'll just go a little towards explaining what I'm saying when I say microbiome. It is literally like a virus. You all know viruses, bacteria, fungus. These are the three microbial, which means they are not visible to the naked eye. They are so microscopic, so they are so tiny. But you know, a COVID virus, which is not visible, can kill an individual. So how important it is to have the right balance of the good microbiome, the good bacteria in our bodies. Now this microbiome together, all these organisms together is called the microbiome, and the micro is M-I-C-R-O, biome is B-I-O-M-E, living. Yeah, these are living, yes, yeah. These are living organisms, and our gut has the maximum amount or quantity or the house of the microbiome in our bodies is our gut. Today, researchers have found that there is even bacteria, the microbiome is in the brain also. Every body fluid, every tissue has its microbiome. The skin has its own microbiome, the eye has its own microbiome, the urinary tract, etc., etc. So, even breast milk is not sterile. There is a microbiome content. But the maximum number of microbes are found in the gut. And these microorganisms, when they are working for us, they are in balance. Maybe I should put it the other way around. When these are in balance, they are working for us. It's called symbiosis. But when they go haywire, when there is a dysbiosis, when there is an imbalance between the good and the bad, bacteria, fungus, viruses, when there is more of the bad ones, the pathogenic ones, the ones which cause disease, say like COVID, and many, many more, when that number goes up and the good ones get outnumbered, is a state of disease. The microbiome residing in the gut helps in almost all aspects of our life. Who we are we in a good nutritional status? Are we absorbing our food? Are we healthy? Do we have energy? Are we positive? Are we happy? Are we angry? Do we have anxiety? Do we have OCDs? Do we have schizophrenia, bipolar, etc.? Do we have mood disorders? Whether we have diabetes, or I have a thyroid problem, or I have a joint problem, or I have a skin problem, or I am balding. Everything about us. Whether I will achieve my height potential, whether I'll become tall, or I will not get my height potential, whether I will have children, whether I will have dysmenorrhea, PMS, whether I will have PCOD or PCOS, infertility, miscarriages, everything is being controlled by these tiny microorganisms.
How to control the microorganisms?
Whether I have cancer, whether I have a genetic, I may have a whole blueprint of diseases, but will I have that disease or not is going to be determined by these microbes or the microbiota.
How to control the microbiome?
That's why we are here.
That's the diet.
So that's what I said. The good news is that today we can intervene and ensure that we have a robust, healthy microbiome. The tools are with us, the science is with us, and we are seeing transformations literally in my practice. All over the world, researchers have found there is so much evidence linking everything today with the microbiome. And that science is being taught in Harvard and Mayo, but unfortunately, our medical professionals are not talking too much about it right now. This has to catch up. But we see these things happening. I have patients who come with vitiligo, with skin problems in the sense there's no pigment from age 4. This boy comes at the age of 34 with obesity. And we change his flour for his weight. And we see in 3 weeks he's pigmenting. Never in his life any treatment, whether it was allopathy, homeopathy, Ayurvedic, all his father had done everything as a child. And he was absolutely white. And suddenly with the change in grain, And I told him, I said, there is something to do with your food, because I saw a positive test also on the gluten front. And then he says, oh ma'am, I don't know, I was wondering what's happening to me. I'm getting pigment on my hands, I've never pigmented. So it's visible. And this boy, after 3 months, goes back to eating wheat, and the pigment goes. It becomes as he was. So these are very few, there are thousands of patients today I can share with you. Diabetes reversals, thyroid nodules disappear in a month's time. A patient who's been on a diet for PCOD, having lots of dairy, vegetarian, because she's vegetarian, she was asked to have high protein. So she was having all kinds of protein, paneer, etc., and trying to deal with her polycystic ovaries. And 3 years, there was no change. When she came to me, within a month, her scan showed no cysts. Within a month. And then she goes to for the checkup, and she had a thyroid nodule. And the doctor kept feeling it, and he said, I can't see it. And then they did a scan, and they said, there's no nodule, it's gone. How did that happen? So these are very visible things. We see transformations at every level, mental health, anxiety pills going away. So, so much. So, coming back to the importance of the microbiome, they are weighing almost about 2 to 3 kilos, things that we don't even see from our eyes. The weight of a microbiome in our gut is almost 2 to 3 kilos, more than the brain. Yeah. So, I have been asked to cut short. So, I think the point that I'm going to reinforce here is that microbiome has the potential of changing our health, and what comes in contact with the microbiome, if it's in the gut, what comes in contact? So why do we say you are what you eat and let food be thy medicine, or the kitchen is the best pharmacy? Why? Because if we tamper with this adversely, if we eat food which is bothering the microbiome, and one of the key in our research, one of the key disruptors of the microbiome is modern wheat. It gets adversely affected, imbalance happens, dysbiosis happens, and that causes what we call a leaky gut, literally holes in the gut. And that leaky gut, when that happens, these toxins and undigested food or partially digested food moves from the gut into the bloodstream, causing a cascade of what we call inflammatory cytokinins. These cytokines, they produce inflammation, and every day, if this happens, these inflammatory proteins are hitting us and bothering us at our weakest point genetically. So if the inflammation is happening in the heart or the vessels or in the brain, we are going to get heart disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, joint pains, depending on where we are most prone to. And what has happened with the pandemic has been a much more accelerated change. COVID itself, the COVID virus, then the COVID treatment, and then the vaccine. The vaccine changed our microbiome profoundly. And then you can see what is happening today. Very few people say we don't have after effects, something or the other. So everything, there's too much beating that's happened in the microbiome. So we need to rebuild the microbiome, and the first step would be to change your grains to healthier grains which don't bother us. And like I said, focus on many, many more aspects like what you eat, how much you eat, when you eat, all of those things. And there are lots of people giving you a lot of good advice, and all these practices are also there. But what I'm trying to say is, once you do that, the cravings, the compulsions to overeat, the the appetite control, the eating behavior also gets impacted. 2 चपाती जो खाते हैं वो मिलेट की खाएंगे तो 1 काफ़ी हो जाएगी, धीरे धीरे वो भी ज़रूरत कम हो जाती है, भूख कम हो जाती है. That's a practical aspect we see every day. And you bring back the wrong grain and you will find the same patient saying, I was too hungry, I needed sugar, I need more variety, I don't, because the motivation also goes down. The dopamine. So whether it's your sleep, we didn't talk about sleep. 90% of the sleep melatonin is secreted in the gut. The appetite controlling hormones, the happy hormones, the neurotransmitters, the vitamins, minerals, all these things are controlled by the, like it's all happening in the gut. 80%, हम लोग सोचते हैं brain से है हमारा, mental illness नहीं है. This is the second brain. This is the largest immune organ. So this talk can go on and on. Purpose of telling you is that you can intervene by changing your grains, building a good microbiome by having fermented foods, having probiotics, and restoring the micronutrients which are missing because of a poor gut, which means optimizing your levels of B12, vitamin D, magnesium. Magnesium is a very big part. Allow me another minute for this important mineral to be introduced to all the listening audience and your families. One very missing, under-recognized, under-treated, under-diagnosed nutrient is magnesium. We have all been focusing on calcium, and that has been counterproductive without magnesium. Magnesium controls 300 functions in the body, including the heart rhythm. And you've seen plenty of people today who are fitness freaks collapsing on the gyms or somewhere with even modest exercise. Their hearts were not compromised. It's literally like a cramp of the heart. So many aspects of magnesium impact our health. I see the deficiency is gross. However, blood tests are not good enough, should not be done because they can be misleading. Because cellular levels and serum levels are different. So please, as a part of your vitamin D everyone is doing today, B12 everyone is doing, as a part of your supplement box, please add magnesium supplements. I'm happy to help you individually also. There is a way of doing a ratio, but it must be a part of all of you, every day, a routine on a regular basis. Magnesium is found naturally in almost all foods, healthy foods, all the whole grains and the nuts and the seeds and everything, but we're not absorbing it. And this, overall long-term depletion, yes, the long-term depletion of magnesium has to be compensated by having supplements. Like vitamin D, you can be exposed to as much sun, but because of a bad gut, we are all deficient. And vitamin D is also a very powerful anti-inflammatory agent. So the 2 or 3 key words for you to take away are the microbiome, the leaky gut, and inflammation. And inflammation today is a root cause of all diseases, including cancers. So control your inflammation through your diet, through building a good healthy microbiome. And my book is in fact here, will be, so it's called the 4G Code to Good Health: Gut, Girth, Gluten and Glucose. So too much of sugar can disturb the microbiome. So watch your sugars, take healthy sugars. What should I say? I'd just like to end by saying that eat the food that you all love. We all have a relationship with food, but also eat the food that loves you. Yeah? And once again, focus on the right kind of grain and limit the quantity of grains, the amount of grain that you have. Maybe not 3 meals, but 2 meals or 1 meal, depending on who you are. There's a very nice quote on that. Ek kaal bhoji is a yogi. Ek time jo khate is a yogi. And dvikal bhoji is a bhogi. 2 time jo khate. Trikal bhoji is a rogi. So with that, I'll just like to say that don't feel that मैंने कम खाया तो मुझे कोई deficiency हो जाएगी. अगर आपकी gut अच्छी है, if you have a good healthy gut microbiome, that little bit food also will be absorbed. So eating better and eating less and eating early is the take home message for today. Thank you so much for listening, and if